Welcome to the MetaCall. I am your host, Katana TCG, and we'll be talking about the results from the latest bigger limitless tourneys that happened in the previous week. We're going to go into the late night series, first place being Jolteon and Teleon, second place being Jolteon and Teleon, and in third place we have some fun deck that we may or may not talk about after this. And fourth place we have Josh Sutherland playing Zacian Zamazenta, which is super cool. GG's to him. And we've got fifth place Suicune Ludicolo, which is crazy because for so long Suicune was kind of taking over and playing without Ludicolo, but playing like Streamline Hammers and Fan of Waves and stuff like that to kind of push Mew down. But if you can look in this top cut, there's no Mew to be found. So Suicune Ludicolo coming in clutch. Then we have Jolteon and Teleon. We've got two Duraludons in 7th and 8th. And in 9th and 10th you have Jolteon and Teleon. And we'll go into that Jolteon list that won the whole dang thing. It's Jolteon, man. There's nothing really too crazy about it. It does run the one of Cheryl, and I really like the idea of running two, but I do like the two Fan of Waves that they're currently running in this list. Other than that, not including the one of Capture Energy that so many lists have been utilizing, I think gives it a slight advantage over Duraludon, which is actually a really big pressure deck in this format. Given that you run 4 Path to the Peak, you don't really get hung up on things like Duraludon, but you do need to hit it, anywhere between 3 to 4 times because of its a tremendous amount of HP, and Duraludon teching in things like the Yell Towel as well as Big Charm, making it a little tankier. But GG's to Jolteon really taking over that whole top cut. It's absolutely insane the kind of success that it's had since release in Evolving Skies. With all the Urshifus running around, you would assume something like this wouldn't have been so abusive, if you will. But it does capitalize on a lot of the decks that have this shady dealing spine. So GG2 Inteleon, and let's go look at the cool deck, which is Surfetch. And we've been seeing a lot of these baby Pokemon or two-prize Pokemon kind of come in and clean up what's remaining in the meta. And swinging for both dark and fighting, it makes it very, dangerous in specific matchups. The Mincino Chincino engine hasn't been as prevalent in this current format, but it's cool to see something like this take over. The Galarian Zapdos, the baby version, of course, allows you to accelerate 2 fighting energy into play, and then when you switch into the Galarian Surfetch, its Resolute Spear ability allows you to move whatever fighting energies on the field. So if you're already accelerating 2 with Zapdos, you're able to basically fulfill the entire Meteor Mash attack on Galarian Surfetch. So it's cool to see a deck like this take over. We all knew that Zapdos was a fun deck to play, but with things like Galarian Moltres being able to capitalize on things like Mew, it's powerful and probably very fun to play. I admire its tenacity, if you will. But overall, being able to take a top cut spot in the late night series with something like this is insane. So GG's to that opponent for sure. Let's go look at the Sunday Open, and guess what? It's Jolteon again. Jolteon and Teleon taking first and second, and then we have Sableye and Teleon taking third, which is really cool. The return of Suicune Ludicolo for 4th and 5th, and in 6th place we have the real return of the the Broken King, which is Single Strike Urshifu and Umbreon. We had 2 other very cool decks. The 7th place, we'll go into that list in just a second. It's Suicune and Friends once more. And at 8th place, it's Rapid Strike Inteleon and Rapid Strike Urshifu. We looked at a list pretty close to that in the earlier streams this week. Very, very powerful with the Rapid Strike synergy. It's just able to capitalize on so many decks, and it has the immediate counter to things like Jolteon, given that it runs the Rapid Strike Urshifu. 9th place, we do see a Mew Genesect, but if that's the only Mew Genesect in this top cut, we're doing something right. Everyone, you're playing your hearts out, and I love it. 10th place, the Mighty Power Tower, Duraludon. So let's go into that first place Jolteon list. Very much so the same. Kind of already talked about this before. The one of Capture Energy is a little... If you're able to keep Path to the Peak and play, Duraludon's not such an issue, but I don't see a real point in getting the extra special energy in here if you already have a crazy amount of draw power with speed energy. I understand that getting your board state set up is important, but we have so many things like the Pokemon Search like Quick Ball and Level Ball, that maybe the one of Capture Energy isn't super duper necessary, but I understand in specific scenarios that you'd rather be looking at it than looking for it. What I did notice in here is it's running the 70 HP Sobble, so the Keep Calling wasn't so necessary, and maybe having issues with things that spread damage counters, losing things like your Sobble feel real bad. So I guess having the extra 10 HP did make a difference, and it had clear results, taking first place. So GG for sure. And we're going to go look at that cool deck, which is Suicune and Friends. We looked at a list very similar to this, but it's featuring the Baby Galarian Moltres, as well as Hoopa, and Hoopa V, which could be a good play with the Energy Switch, the Dire Flame Wings from Galarian Moltres V, and having the ability to Raihan, accelerating an energy out of the discard pile again, and going into your deck and being able to search things like the Aurora energy. Hoopa V can definitely capitalize on a lot of things in the meta. Very strong, very different from the norm, and I would imagine a deck like this doesn't necessarily get pushed around so much by things like Jolteon, but you do rely very heavily on your abilities. As you can see clearly, every single one of these very powerful Pokemon have abilities, so it's necessary to run things like 4 Rose Tower. Other than that, cool deck. I think I really like the way that this meta is shifting without relying so heavily on shady dealings. And we're going to go into the 2 decks that I think are going to take over, and it's no different than last week because they merit results. You get top cuts, and number 1 is going to be Duraludon. Pushing down decks that rely on special energy while manipulating the board state with things like Avery, very, very useful. I still like the one of Flannery. The double cave play is so sick, being able to heal 60, and that's without using a Yell Towel that turn too. The tankiness that we were referred to before with Duraludon having such high HP, the Big Charm, the Crystal Cave, the Yell Towel, all of it together really do make Duraludon a powerhouse to kind of get over, and it makes it a real problem for Jolteon too. And we're going to go into the next list, which happens to be our double Cheryl Jolteon deck again. Running 4 Path to the Peak, so it can leap over things like Duraludon. Other than that, I think the only iffy thing is the 3 Quick Ball, but there's so much Pokemon Search in a deck like this. I did still like to defer to the Sobble Keep Calling, because getting out more Sobbles is never a bad thing if you have a dead hand. Overall, great deck. The double Cheryl specifically so you can absorb hits, heal it all off, and attach 1 energy and then go back at it. But that's been your MetaCall. If you want to place top cut anywhere in these limitless events, play Jolteon or Duraludon. The proof's in the pudding. Deuces.